morning, everyone, and welcome to our first episode of Freebird, a place where we are going to talk to some of my very, very interesting friends and really look at their lives, because a lot of them dare greatly, and I'm so proud to call them my friends. And I can't think of a better person to kick off the show than Adrian Kerr. Hi, Adrian.
Good morning. How are you?
That
was a pretty good introduction.
Really? No, I'm yet to talk about how fabulous you are. So,
it's gonna get better than that.
Of course.
I thought just being named one of your most interesting friends was introduction enough.
Well, usually it is, but in your case, I think I have to try a little harder, because
don't try too hard. I mean, I'm just me, you know.
Yeah, well, so they say that life's a daring adventure or nothing at all, and I can't really, when I think of the word adventure, you automatically come to mind, Adrian. For those who are tuning in today, I want to share with all of you that from starting off so many fitness ventures in UAE to currently educating the next generation of Emirati kids in the UAE, Adrian's kind of spent a long time in the fitness world. But to me, what makes him super interesting and adventurous, and a little less known fact amongst most of the people who are watching my channel right now, is that Adrian is a kite surfer. And I've got some numbers here that I find, oh my God, I mean, beautiful. He is a podcast recorder and also a live stream host. And Adrian has a podcast called Kite Surf 365, which has been downloaded in over 160 countries. I mean, how many countries do we have in the world anyway? Is this a bit of a... I don't know. I mean, I think it's 160.
I think it's technically impossible to be downloading all of them, but I mean, it's a big percentage, right?
Yeah, 160 countries worldwide, and you've been hosting some of the biggest stars in the kite surfing world. You have a show right now which is called Lockdown and Live with Adrian, and it's twice a week show. It streams out to an audience of 90,000 people. I mean, Adrian, how fabulous are you? You are...
who is this person? This sounds amazing.
Yes, you are born in New Zealand and you call the UAE home. I'm so lucky to have you as a neighbor. I like that I have that fabulousness around me. You love sport, beer, barbecuing, coffee, and eating. And with no relation to the supermodel Miranda Kerr, but yet beautiful and fabulous. Adrian, welcome to the show. Thank you for being so fabulous.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for inviting me on and giving me the opportunity to share my story. I mean, there's actually a lot more to that story than meets the eye, right? Because, when you talk about kite surfing, I mean, little known fact that actually I played a lot of rugby before I got into kiteboarding.
Wow.
I only started kiteboarding when I retired from rugby. So for most of my life, rugby was my major thing, and I played all levels. I captained the UAE team out here for many years and played international rugby. And so I had a lot of other stories and components to my life than the person, which is quite interesting, right?
Yeah. So tell me about your journey. I mean, how did you navigate all this? I mean, tell us.
You know what? I always say I should write a book, because I have had so many changes in my life. And I think that's probably a little bit about going abroad, I mean, in New Zealand, it's quite big to do what we call an OE, an overseas experience, because we are so far away from the world. Because we are, like Australia, we're down under, right? We're everything is far, unless it's Australia or New Zealand. So a lot of young New Zealanders leave the country for a couple of years and come back. And I sort of left and never came back, Not that wasn't the plan, but it sort of set me on the path of all this journey that I've been on, and as I said, I've was involved in the fitness industry for a long time and always involved in education. Education was the underlying thing that I was involved in, whether it was teaching personal training or classes or whatever. It's all education, right? Then moving through that sector, I'm still really in that sector, but from that, I've diversed into other areas, now working in education with Emirati boys. So I have I guess there's been a lot of stories, but the underlying bone of my adventure has always been education. You know, if the story is the meat, you know, I've intertwined the meat all the way along at different ventures, whether it's gyms, you know, fitness companies, whatever I've done, you know, it's all the underlying culture of all of that has been education. So I think that's quite interesting. When I think about it now, and I really haven't really put much thought into it, I've had so many adventures in my life. Education has always been there somewhere.
What is it about education that draws you to it? I mean,
The holidays. I mean, that's the bottom line. You know, we all get into education for the holidays. You know what? To be honest, you know, you hear these teachers say, "Oh, I love the education. I love the teaching." I don't know if I love that part of it.
yeah,
Um, there is the interpersonal relationship you have with children, young men, young adults, which is it's really nice. And I used to work in primary. Now I'm working in secondary, and there is something about when you get, you know, these boys turn up as 13, 14, and you watch them grow into men and leave school, you know,
wow.
there is something nice about that. I don't know whether I can say that, oh, I love the teaching process. I think I've always liked the relationship process more, you know,
Yeah.
getting to develop them. And, you know, I always say that I'm always tough on these guys. You know, they always say, oh, why are you so tough on us? Because I said, because I'm, you know, when you're 18, you'll thank me for it. You know, when
Hmm.
you're like my classes are tough because I'm strict on the boys because I expect certain levels. And in return, I look at other classes and they're, let's say, a mess, what I would consider a mess. And I think later on down the line, the boys respect that more, you know? So I
Yeah.
don't know. Maybe it's the relationships I like over the teaching side or the
Hey, look, I mean,
interpersonal.
I remember a hike we went on, and for those watching, I've never been on a hike ever before, and I think you kind of told me a little bit about what to expect before going on the hike, and it was Adrian was like, oh, it's so cool, it's going to be easy and all of that, and I didn't even know how to place my feet on the rocks, and
Mm.
there you were teaching me. So I guess it comes kind of naturally to you, like you're like a
I think I came back and I said, listen, Sneh, if you don't pick up the pace, this is going to be a miserable day for you. I was,
no, you didn't
I
say
think
that in so many words because that would have
no,
been
but I mean,
safe.
exactly. I just said, look, you have to walk with more confidence. And if you look at the underlying tone of life, right, you have to walk with more confidence, you know. And I don't want to say that's a metaphor for life, but if you are unsure about everything you do, it's very hard to pave the way for anything, right? So you have to, you know, even if you don't know, it's okay to try.
So do you think like that because you've spent so much time in your life in like sports and fitness, like being a rugby player and all of that, does that make
Mm.
you a better coach in general? Do you think everybody should
Um,
get into
you know,
sport?
look, I mean, I think everyone should be involved in sport to some level, whether
Yeah.
it's a 20-minute walk, you know, whether it's a 20-minute walk every day on the beach or with your partner or something like that, you know, I think that's important. Um, does that make me a better coach? No. I mean, that doesn't make anyone a better coach. I mean, sometimes the best coaches are not the best players, right? And
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I don't think that because you're good at sport makes you a good coach. I think that you have to be passionate about. You're talking about different things. Coaching and teaching are different, right? They're quite different things. To teach someone is different to coach because when you're coaching, you're more building up a skill development towards the complexity of a game. When you're teaching, you're basically teaching core fundamentals across many subjects, if that makes sense. It's probably not a good analogy actually, but um, I think sport in general gives good core values for anything. You know, I think everyone should be involved in sport to some level, whether you are getting into a martial art, which is good for discipline or whatever. I mean, I do think that sport. I mean, listen, the bottom line is that any health professional, I don't care who they are, they'll tell you the key thing to better a healthier, longer life is be active, right? Because we have become more sedentary through our time, whether it's our jobs or our lives or our um, you know, like where we choose to live. So, I mean, I think being active is baseline, really.
Yeah. I mean, I guess a lot of us want to be active and go to the gyms and stuff like that. But then I see someone like you and I see someone who's super passionate about what he currently does. And so we just shared with everybody that you've got this kite surfing podcast.
Mm.
What a unique place to be. And so what attracted you to kite surfing, Adrian, from rugby to kite surfing?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I finished rugby, I was sort of pottering around doing a few things. And actually, I got into kite surfing because an ex-girlfriend of mine was a kite surfer. So I
Ooh.
started kite surfing through then. And then I just got the bug, and just really got into it. Um, the podcast came along because before that, I actually had another podcast called The Brew. And it was a podcast it was a podcast where a bunch of guys, two guys would sit down, drink a whole lot of beer and just talk rubbish, And to be honest, we actually had some mild success, but it ended up almost costing us our jobs at the time because
Oh, wow.
the kids in school found out about it, and just where we are in the world, it's sort of unbecoming of the system that we work in.
Mhm.
So that actually was gave me a taste for the podcasting side of stuff. Then I got into kite surfing, and I didn't do any podcasts for a few years. And then I'd go away on these amazing kite trips. And one thing about kite surfing that I really enjoy is it brings together people from all walks of life, different religions, different countries, different ages, different sort of society groups, and brings it together with this love of being on the water, being with the wind, being at nature. And kite surfing in particular has a very unique thing about it, that it is, if someone's in trouble, everyone comes and help you. There is something about kite surfing that makes it different than other water sports. Surfing is notoriously territorial, and guys in the back of the lineup with all their heads down, no one's talking. Where here it's a lot more, there's something about it, it's very hard to explain. So when you go on these kite trips and you go to the bar at the end of the day and everyone's super stoked and everyone's trying to share their amazing stories or their successes, everyone's happy for them, having a few beers. And I thought, hey, this would be a great podcast to share these amazing stories. So at the time when I started the podcast, I didn't really have any credibility inside the industry. Like I couldn't
How far
call the
back was
pros up.
that, Adrian?
About 3 years ago.
Okay.
So I'd been writing some time by then, but I hadn't, so when I couldn't call anyone that I really knew. So I
Mhm.
just started calling my friends and whatever, and people I knew, did interviews with people I knew, and it just sort of built up from there. But a lesson I learned a long time ago in the fitness industry that I always used to tell people is consistency is the key to results. Because if you strive to be perfect, you'll always fail. But if you strive for consistency, you'll always achieve. So I just thought, you know what, I'm going to consistently record one episode every single week and just keep working. And I did that, and I started out recording with my friends and blah, 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 and always emailing the pros and texting the pros, come on. And every now and then I'd get one pro would come on, and it would be a great episode. But I just consistently worked hard. And I mean, I spent literally hours and hours and hours emailing and texting and messaging and whatever.
Wow.
And then I got to the stage where I was like getting, big. But the funny thing, it wasn't always about getting the big star in the end, I realized, because I always wanted to humanize that pro rider, to let people know that it wasn't always, they weren't different than you and I. And then I realized, actually, you know what? It's actually quite cool to have stories from the people as well. So I would also do, every now and then I'd throw stories in about kite schools or kite spots or initiatives that people were doing, because I really wanted the podcast to be about the people. And to this day, it still is, although I do get trapped up in having, big banger after big banger, but I do try, and every now and then try and, I just finished a 4-part series on a guy called Dave Kay, who's very well known in the industry, but not really well known when it comes to the general rider. So I did a 4-part series on him and his wife, which is over a 20-year journey, which was something different and cool as well. So yeah, so the podcast is built over time, and to where it is now. I mean, there are other podcasts in kite surfing. I mean, I'm definitely the most prolific person out there when it comes to when it comes to content going out there. That's for sure. I mean, all the other podcasts are
I
good. They're
hadn't even
different.
known of kite surfing till well, I met you. I mean, I had always thought of it as something that only daredevils would do, and then they'd end up. Hey, listen, I went to your Instagram yesterday, and I saw that on one of your kite surfing trips, you smashed into a jellyfish, and you had like scars all over your face. So I was like,
I still actually have the scars here. You probably
oh
can
my
still see some of the
God.
scars here. Yeah,
You
that
can
was about
see.
that was about 5 years ago.
Oh my God. And you still go back. So, I mean,
Well, actually, that one wasn't too bad. Actually, that was bad. I mean, it was pretty bad, like 5 or 6 days in quite bad position. But I
wow.
did get another one on my waistline about a year later, and that injury took. It was an open wound, and it took. I'm telling you, it must have taken over a year to heal.
No, I mean,
Yeah, it was.
I can't even imagine that. Like it, to me,
Yeah,
that
it
is
was pretty.
a nightmare. That will keep me away
Yeah, it
from the
was a nightmare.
water. So, I mean, I look at that. I mean, what you're doing with kite surfing, I mean, not only are you a kite surfer yourself, you're
Mm,
also kind of using this platform for community and for
mm.
conversation. And I'm sure you've kind of learned through this process. So, do you find like there are some parallels about what you can learn? What has it taught you really? This
Well,
entire
I think community, you use that word community, and that's something I've always said. I said this, a community is everything for me when it comes to the thing, because I try to, I mean, I think this is a great way to build the community, whether you're creating content for people who are new to the sport, or people who are in the sport, or people are interested in the sport. What you're doing is any content that comes out, you're strengthening the community, right? Because people are spending more time invested in the sport. I think that is a good for community development, whether it's people are learning more or listening more or watching more, whatever. So content is important for anything.
Mhm.
What have I learned? Well, I mean, I don't know if there's been any real life lessons to come out of this, that other than if you set your mind to do something and you work hard, you can achieve it. I mean, that's the bottom line, really.
That's a
Um,
big message,
I mean, if you really want to do something and you really believe in it, if you say, I am going to, and the funny thing about this podcast is the first time I ever really set goals in my life, you know,
No,
I, I,
I
I
find
said,
that
I
hard to
am
believe because you're like, I mean, how old are you? You look like not a day older than 18. But
50.
like,
No,
yeah,
I mean, listen, I've just never been a goal setter. I've been one of those guys who, you know, got achieved stuff through hard work, but that wasn't like, I never thought that was a goal. Like I wanted to make this team. I worked hard to make the team. But this is the first time I sat down and said, right, next year I want to achieve X, Y, and Z. I want to do this. I want to achieve this. I want to do this, 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 and this. And I mean, so far, I mean, realistically, in 3 years, I've hit every time I've set my goals, I've done it.
wow,
So this year I've set some pretty lofty goals, which maybe I won't achieve, but because of coronavirus or whatever. But the bottom line is that it's the first time I really ever set goals in my life. And that sounds kind of strange to say, but it was really good to achieve them. It was like, I was surprised when I look back and think, wow, I've actually achieved this. And I've set this year's goals. I'm probably not going to achieve just on the way
yeah,
the industry is.
yeah,
But goal setting is something that I never really sort of thought much about it, because I had so many successes in life as it was, if that makes sense. I sort of, everything I really wanted to do, I managed to do. So this was something different, because I was at the bottom. Literally, I would be calling people and they'd be like, who are you? And I'm like, I'm starting this podcast and kite surfing. Nobody knew who I was. And
So
I
how do
didn't,
you take the rejection?
I
I mean,
tell you, I never had any, what I'm telling you now, I didn't have any street cred when it comes to the kite surfing world at that time. So I just was like, you know what? I'm going to just do one every single week, one a week for the whole year. And slowly, it went up and down, up and down. The first year was pretty lean pickings, to be honest, pretty lean pickings. What I thought was good back then is nothing now. Like, for example, like I think in the first month I had like 400 downloads. And to be honest, if you think about it, it's actually okay, right?
that's a lot.
100.
You're talking about
I
kites.
did 4 episodes
Yeah,
and I had 400 downloads. And
wow.
if you think about it, it's probably okay. It's like 100 people. I mean, I was advertising it across every single kiteboarding platform or media or whatever. So I was really pushing hard, And I
I
was
think it's
thinking,
important to say that you were doing all of this with a full-time job, right?
oh yeah, the
How
full-time
is
job. I
that
mean, this,
happening, Adrian? Because there are people
well,
out there who are watching you right now and thinking, he's doing all of this. Is it like a full-time career for him or something like that?
mm,
And just for
mm,
all of you guys to know, when the corona
mm,
pandemic happened, and when we were thinking that no one can go out there in nature, we had Adrian thinking about how to interview, I don't know, all the kite surfing beautiful women and men in the world. And I was like,
mm,
look at this guy, he's so resilient. So How do you kind of,
No, you don't have a choice, you know. It's like you got to keep pushing on.
yeah,
The thing is, though, the thing is that if you go back to, I think we sort of digress from where we were, but I think
not
if you decide to stick to what you're doing and you have a plan, it doesn't matter the outside conditions, whether it's economic or environmental or whatever. You know, you just sort of keep pushing them. Actually, I've sort of picked up the pace a little bit. You know, I go through the highs and lows of doing it, but you know, in the beginning, one a week was easy.
mm-hmm.
Now I'm like 8 a month. You know, it's a full-time job outside of my other job. So sometimes I'll come home from work and I'll spend, maybe 4 hours in the studio every night. Every night,
How are
four
you
hours.
doing this? What makes, what tools are you using to kind of live this fuller life that you have?
Well, I don't know if necessarily I've got tools. I'm not necessarily having individual tools, but it's the drive to be at the top, the drive to be the drive to keep pushing, even though there's competitors around. To drive that is, I don't want to be known as, oh, that used to be a good podcast. You know, I'm always trying to develop it. So the drive to keep it at the top of it is a big thing for me. So, for example, one of the big things that I've had to change in the last 4 months because of the COVID-19 is that I used to be more current. My podcast changed into sort of current affairs, or
Uh-huh.
sort of, let's say, news. So
Mhm.
as let's say the Red Bull King of the Air is one of the premier events in kiteboarding, is held in February. So in February, I do all the sort of lead up to the event. After the event, I have the guys who are first, second, and third on. So, you know, so it's more what's happening. So I find that you get good return on that. Come mid-March, nothing's happening. So I've had to go back to find riders and start sharing rider stories again, which is great, but it's not really what I want to be doing. You know, I really want to be doing the current affairs stuff because it's more topical at the time, and I think that I get more return on that.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, the big goal was to within the next year to 18 months was to leave teaching and go full time in kiteboarding media. That's the plan. Um, Obviously, that actually this whole COVID-19. I hope people are interested in this. This
No,
is seems a bit, we're getting a bit off the point, but this whole COVID-19 actually spurned this development of the live stream, right? So I pitched an idea to the Kite Mag to do maybe they pitched it to me. I can't remember. We sort of talking about it, and then they came back, and the editor and I spent about a few hours putting this plan together called Lockdown and Live. And what Lockdown and Live was going to be a bi-weekly live stream where we would get the guys on and put questions out to the people and do a Q&A. So it's easy for me to do. I don't have to do any prep. I just log on and read the questions to the writer. But it just became a new avenue of exposure during these weird times. So I'd have the podcast twice a week. Then I'd have this Lockdown Live.
wow.
And then recently, in the last couple of weeks, I've now been judging. There's a Polish bikini brand called Neverboard Bikinis.
No way.
And now I'm the official
That's
judge
not a
of.
job. That's not a job, Adrian. I'm sorry.
Now I'm the official.
You're
I'm the official
entertaining.
judge of Neverboard Bikinis. Bikini Summer Challenges, which is again been a lot of fun. You know, that's just.
I mean, judging a bunch of what I can only imagine are beautiful women, right? And I mean that's not hard at all. I'm sorry, you're not getting any.
I mean, it's a job I take seriously.
I don't even want to get into the details there. Oh, that's hilarious. So, I mean, I'm looking at you and I see someone who has, I feel, a resilient spirit. And I don't know, I mean, whether it's something that everybody has. I would like to imagine it is. But if there's someone watching you right now and kind of feels that they have missed the boat, you know, there could be some people who wanted to be photographers but are stuck with family responsibilities. There are, you know, people who have walked the straight and narrow and are continuing to, and they feel that they've missed the boat. What would you say to them?
Oh, well, look, I tell you what, I didn't start kite surfing until I was 38 years old. Think about that. The world champion is 14 years old. So, I mean, I'm completely at the other end of the spectrum when it comes to kite surfing. This podcast I started 3 years ago when I was 42. That you're never too late to do what you want to do. And that's the great thing about kite surfing as well. I mean, there's guys who are 70, 80 who still kite surf. And I'm just using kite surfing as an example. If you want to be a photographer, get out with your phone and start walking around and taking pictures on your phone and find something you want to take and just do it. You know, that's the great thing about the times we live in, especially in this lockdown. YouTube is the best university.
Yeah.
If you want to learn about photography, go on YouTube. If you want to learn about writing a book, go on YouTube. If you want to learn about putting up this 3D wallpaper behind me, go on YouTube. Everything is on YouTube. So don't ever think that you're too late or you missed the boat. It's never too late. You know, I mean, I remember after the 2008, economic crisis. I mean, we lost everything, in Dubai, because we got crippled. Our business was destroyed. And we were like, oh, all forlorn. Oh, we'll never be the same. And some guy said to me, it's never too late. It's never too late. I mean, you can do anything you want these days, so you don't have to worry about, if you want to have a hobby or a skill, there's no time like the present. Like I say to myself every year, I'm going to learn guitar. I'm going to learn guitar. I'm going to learn guitar. When the time's right, I'll learn guitar, But a lot of that comes down to me actually buying a guitar. I don't have the time to learn a guitar. I don't really have the time. I got no time,
And besides, you're already so fabulous. I mean, give us ladies all a break here. I mean, we need some time to digest the awesomeness that is Adrian.
But I mean, seriously though, Sneh, I mean, if you have time and you're passionate about something, don't watch any more Netflix series. Just do it. Because and you know what? And here's the other thing as well. Maybe you think you want to do it and you do it. And then after 2 or 3 months, you're like, well, that's not for me. That's okay too. It's like Michael Jordan. It's like Michael Jordan said. Michael Jordan said, look, you miss all the chances you don't take. You miss all the shots you don't take, So have a go. If you like it, stop. It's okay to say, hey, I gave it a go. I really wanted to do pottery, but you know what? I didn't like the mud under my nails, so it wasn't for me. Cool. That's all right. Try something else. And if you look at the most highly successful people in the world, right? They tried everything. I mean, how many times did Richard Branson go broke before he made it? How many times is, all these other people had all these other problems. So I definitely think that there's no time like today.
That's fabulous. I have to ask you, because, kite surfing, just going back to that for a quick second, I'm imagining big waves and sharks and fear, like real physical fear, not something that you just created in your head. Do you have some advice for people? I know that you're saying that, go out there and try it and, see how it fits. But for people who are feeling real fear, whether that's to do a task which is physically daunting or mentally challenging, what advice do you have for them about fear, tackling fear?
Look, it's hard for me to speak on fear on topics that I don't know about. For example, people who struggle with mental health, I don't have any reference to that. And when people have this, I mean, I had a conversation with a kite surfer, and I'm not going to say his name because it's not fair for him, but he struggles with mental health to such a bad extent. He said, Adrian, I thought in my worst times, I thought I was right and the whole world was wrong. And I said, doesn't that not make sense to you? He said, no, when you're in that state, it's clarity. So I can't speak when it comes to facing mental fears or those types of things. When it comes to facing physical fears, yeah, that's a tough one because I think everyone's different, right? I think if you want to sort of quantify it to yourself, and let's say your fear of heights, and you say, oh, my life, before I die, I want to do a bungee jump.
Yeah.
And you're a fear of heights, I think you've got to look at if you want to look logically at it and you want to face your fears, you could probably quantify it by going through and saying, well, like, bungee jumping has been around for 40 years and they've had one death. So the chances of you actually dying on that operation are probably pretty low. So you could probably justify it that way. In terms of kiteboarding, you're talking about big waves and sharks and stuff. No, that's just the reality of the wild. I saw a shark just the other day, just on our local beach, in the water.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, they get a fright. Like they get a fright. Maybe 4 foot.
No.
So, and they're just as afraid as you. So, I sort of feel like I'm waffling. I've got a fly in there. I'm sort of feel like I'm waffling around the subject because I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can give qualified advice for facing fears. I know, for example, like when I go to Madeira and I go kite surfing down there, and I'm driving the car to the spot, and it's so windy that the car is shaking and the sand's hitting the car so hard it sounds like rain on a heavy rainy day. and I'm driving down there, and I'm scared. I'm scared for the sessions ahead, but I know that at the end of the day, that stoke, that adrenaline, that thing, wow, it's incredible for me. You know,
Wow.
I know when I get off the water, I'm literally like, wow, I'm super pumped. I'm super stoked. Now that's not for everybody. That isn't for everybody. That's not the fear. But whether it's you're afraid of heights and you do a bungee jump, you see that person come back and they are over the moon, right?
Yeah.
I've done a bungee jump, and
Of
when I
course
was
you have.
jumping, I was thinking, this is the stupidest thing I've ever done, you know. But at the end of it, it's awesome, right? So
I'm sure that you had a piranha for a pet as a child or something like
no,
that. Crocodile in your back doors and stuff. But it's beautiful.
exactly.
I think what you're saying about fear and kind of facing it and knowing that the outcome of it can only be or is beautiful gives us that opportunity to take that step forward. So I hear you.
Well, if I ask you, Sneh, what is something that you're afraid of?
Oh man, how much time have you got?
Well, the rest of the day.
So I think one of the things that I was really afraid of, and I'm trying to deal with it, is like just the elements, the outdoors. Because, for example, I'm not a good swimmer. I don't know how to swim. I never
Mm.
learned, right? And I look at a guy like you, and I'm like, how is he doing this? You know?
Mm.
So yeah, the fear of drowning, maybe because I don't know how to swim and I don't know how to balance myself.
So, I mean, the bottom line for that, I mean, the fear of outdoors is not a fear. The fear of swimming is a fear. The
Yeah.
fear of being outside. But hey, look, the bottom line, at the fear of drowning, it's so simple, right? You go, you get someone to teach you, and you start learning to swim. I mean, you just say to the swimming teacher, say, listen, I cannot swim. See this rock? Throw it in the pool. That's me. Okay. A good coach or educator, and going back to the education part, will see that. Okay, great. Let's get you in the pool and start looking at floating. Can you float? Teach you how to float. The confidence of being able to float is a thing. Even open my door. Now I've got flies in the house. So learning how to float, so it's a process of steps. First of all, we teach water confidence, then we teach floating, then we teach floating in different positions, then we teach kicking with the board, then we bring in the arms. So after a while, you start building up to the end, the person can swim. I think swimming is a fundamental skill everyone should learn. If you fall off a boat and we're in a party, Sneh, I'll be very upset if I have to jump in the water to get you.
But you know what? I know that the person that you are, you'd probably do it before. You'd probably be watching out for me, like that little kook over there. She's gonna fall at some point, and I need to be like having a lot less beer. So listen.
Well, I've had to jump into, I have to save kids all the time in the pool, and I know it's going to happen. I know before it happens.
See what I mean? You're like the perfect.
And sometimes I just dive in when I know they're in trouble. I just dive in straight away in all my clothes and pull them out.
See, this is what makes you, like, to me, a fabulous free bird, because you're just like so in the moment. You're so in the moment. So listen, Adrian, I mean, I know that whenever we kind of, where you are right now, right? If I were to kind of put you in a time machine and say, here you go, and you can speak to the 20-year-old Adrian, yeah, who I'm sure had locks like yours right now. And
maybe not so gray.
Yeah, but was still like, scoring all the chicks, and I'm sure very confident, outdoorsy, whatever. What's the advice that you would have given him at the time from what you know today?
Mm. Well, I mean, it's a tough one. I mean, the bottom line is that if you talk financially, that's a whole nother problem, right? I mean, you would say, listen, just be smarter with your money, and don't try and if the scheme seems too crazy, it probably is, But for a social side of things, I would just say, listen, go out and do everything, enjoy everything you can, try everything, find something that you like and push forward. You don't have to follow the trends of what everyone else does, because a lot of the time, a lot of people are involved in stuff because it's the trend, right? You don't need to go to a Friday brunch every single Friday just because everyone else is going. If you don't want to go, and again, here's a good one. FOMO is not important. The fear of missing out is not important. And I think a lot of people do stuff because of that fear of not being involved in what's
Sure.
happening at the time.
Sure.
And I think that's probably the biggest thing. What advice would I give myself? I don't know. I mean, that's a tough one. I mean, personally, I'd say one of the advice is that, number one, don't worry about what's going to happen over the next 15 years, because it's not till you're 35 that you really actually have a grip on what's happening in life.
Mm-hmm.
I think up to the age of 35, you don't really know what's going on. You don't really know where you fit society, or how you're perceived, or what else is going to happen. So there's nothing to worry about. There's nothing to worry about. It's not whether you get married or have kids or nothing. That's not important. The reality is that as you get older, life becomes easier, becomes more clear. And with clarity becomes better decisions, right? So if you do make decisions when you're younger, you don't have to be held accountable for them. When you're 40 and you make bad decisions, that's a different thing, because when you start making bad decisions at 40, there's probably something fundamentally wrong with you, because, these are the kind of things that you should have made. It's like having a pet cat. When they're young, they don't get it.
Mm.
When they're young, they don't get it. So make those mistakes while you're young, so when you're older, you can learn from them.
So do you think that your definitions of how you see success today and versus that boy at 20 have changed?
I mean, how do you quantify success? What is success? I mean, is success financial
That's the
success? Is success emotional success? Success is success that you are you're married with a family. I mean, success is anything that you want it to be, really. Like, so for example, like going back about the podcast, I think it's successful because I actually set goals for the first time, and I realized that, wow, I actually achieved what I set out to do. But what's successful? One person's success can be another person's failures, right? So when I see these books like, oh, guys, success, I kind of feel like, how's that? How can someone write about my successes? How can someone tell me to be successful? Because, I may have this look, and believe me, Sneh, there's parts of my life are in disarray, but there's certain areas of me that are organized. I mean, I'm particularly messy, that's not a trait I'm very good at, but that's been a trait since I was a kid. If you ask my parents about that, I've been a messy kid all my life. So that's something that I've never really mastered. And I doubt I will. I'm 45. I'm not going to master putting stuff away. I'm just going to master. I'm very good at taking it off and throwing it in the corner. And somehow it gets washed, cleaned, and put away. I don't know. I've got this magic corner in my house. I throw stuff there, and it comes back.
Mm.
So what is success? Success is something that if you set yourself a target, going back to learning a new skill or trade or guitar or whatever you want to do, what makes you successful? I think success is if you say, I want to start learning guitar, and the day you pick up the guitar to start learning, you're a success. Whether you master or not, it doesn't matter, because the bottom line is nobody is a master of anything, right? I mean, the masters are the 1%ers. We are the minority, and it's funny because when I listen to the podcast, it's perfectly imperfect, if that makes sense, because I don't do a lot of heavy editing. I want it to sound more like a conversation. I want it to sound more like it's been recorded, just you and I sitting together. If we make a mistake, I leave it in, because that's the way the conversation was.
Yeah.
So I keep it real. So when people say, oh, you stuttered or you say the word too much, it's perfectly imperfect, because that's how I speak.
Yeah.
What they should hear is not how other people speak. So going back to that thing of what makes success is anything you want it to be, as long as you're happy with the outcomes.
Yeah, I hear you. And wow, I mean, I'm the only reason why I'm asking these questions is because I guess I'm trying to navigate what success means to me as well. And as we grow older, we get more clarity, and we see those around us and those who inspire us, and we want to hear from them how they've navigated it. So a lot of lessons from you, Adrian, today, about giving things a go, about trying things and not holding yourself back from trying it. It's being okay to fail. I think very important point there you've made about embracing imperfection. And frankly, I think everything that you've done with obviously these kind of frameworks and thoughts and what you're doing right now for the community and the person that you are. I'm just so glad that I met you and that you're one of my friends. And thank you so much for being on the show today.
My pleasure. I sort of feel like we could keep going for another hour.
Yeah, and maybe we should, because there's so much to talk about. There's so much to give away. But I just want you to know that, you are inspiring to me, and I'm sure to so many people who are going to watch this and feel empowered that someone out there is doing it, and so they can too. So on that note,
And if
kisses.
they want to, if they want to follow along, are you going to put my Instagram in this?
Yes, so I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna
Yeah.
actually set up your Instagram and your podcast and your YouTube
Yeah.
channel. Also, some videos of the beer shots that you took, because everybody needs to know
YouTube channel. No, don't promote that YouTube channel too much. That's a whole different side of me.
Yeah, but it's important to see how we fail and fail magnificently. So,
I don't think that the funny thing about the YouTube channel, I don't think it's a super failure. I mean, well, there's 1.5 million views on that YouTube channel, right? So, I mean, it's not really a failure. I mean, it's sort of it's kind of unbecoming of who I am. I'm actually trying to flip that to something else. I've got a plan to change that to something else called it's going to be more kiteboarding interviews, but drinking beers. So
I love that.
similar but different, same but different.
So there's an evolution there. So wonderful stories, Adrian.
Maybe.
I'm so glad that you were the first on Freebird. Thank you. Kisses. Take care. Stay safe.